my nephew Josh. Josh was born here in St. John's. He's a mechanical engineer. He did his 3 work terms with ExxonMobil here in St. John's. He's really passionate about renewable energy, and whether it's HVAC systems or any type of energy management. For the first 8 months after graduation, he designed and built and installed his own solar thermal heating system in his father's house. He's completed 9 energy audits to date, and in January of this year, he founded his own company, Empowered Homes. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. As my Hope said, I'm really passionate about this stuff, and it's a great opportunity to be able to share this stuff with you during Earth Week here. So, as my aunt said, I just graduated just last May from Dalhousie University with a degree in mechanical engineering. I did the co-op program, and since my graduation, because of my strong passion in regards to sustainable energy consumption and production, I went ahead and founded my own company just this past January. So this is still kind of brand new to me, but I'm really excited about it and making great progress so far. So before I jump into how can we achieve sustainable energy consumption and production in our homes, I just quickly want to talk about why it's important. And for me, there's 3 reasons why I find it important. I'm just going to quickly, briefly touch on each of those 3 on local and global scale. So this is the main reason for me. This is the reason why when I wake up in the morning I do what I do, and that's to combat climate change. In my view, it's one of the most challenging issues that we face right now. So on a global scale, climate change is going to lead to rising sea levels. It will displace millions of people that live near the coast. Increased frequency of droughts in many places will lead to water shortages, food shortages, as well as increased storm intensities. So hurricanes and cyclones are going to become more intense, causing more damage. On a local scale, here in Newfoundland, we have, I think it was 18,000 kilometers of coastline, and many homes and businesses and infrastructure are on the coastline here in Newfoundland, and it's very important to people. And coastal erosion, flooding, these types of things are going to be very significant to those people living in the coast, and it's going to have a very large impact here in Newfoundland. Another thing with winter sea ice, a lot of people here in Newfoundland, especially in Labrador, they rely on winter sea ice for if they're gathering wood or if they're going out hunting. It's very important to them. And with the decreased sea ice, it's going to be a very big impact to those lives. The second thing is energy security. So here in the developed world, when we flip the switch, we know that the light is going to come on, at least most of the time we do, and we kind of take it for advantage. But that's not the case in everywhere in the world. And so energy is really important to people. But if we don't look at ways of sustainable energy consumption and production, those energy shortages are going to become more and more common. As well as countries who have lots of energy and countries who don't have lots of energy will have increased tension between those and lead to conflicts. On a local scale, we all were here this winter when we had the rolling blackouts and power outages from Newfoundland Power. And they were unplanned events, but it's just something like these things where you don't anticipate it, that they're going to become more frequent in the future. So addressing sustainable energy consumption and production will help combat those things. And so this is what a lot of people consider to be the most important, is the reduced energy costs. So in my view, I think energy is one of, if not the most important commodity to people. It's in everybody's lives every single day. On a global scale, people in the developing world, of course 2 billion people, energy is extremely important to them. And lowering the price of energy to them is more important than lowering the price of food or water or medication, because it's energy is what's going to really lift them out of poverty. So the price of energy to them is very important. Here on a local scale, you can think about yourself. If, let's say, your energy bill was 30% more next year, what does that mean for you? going to spend less on the next year if you have to spend more on energy. And for those people, there's even people living here in the province who they're just scraping by right now. They're just able to afford their energy bills. If their energy bill is 30% more next year, what are they going to do? They're simply just going to have to go without the energy that they need, which is very devastating. This is a graph that I pulled from some documentation that now can be put online. This is their projections for the electricity rate here in Newfoundland. So the blue line is the one that you should be looking at. This is the one with Muskrat Falls, and because that's going ahead, this is the scenario that they anticipate. So I put a blue line here. This is showing where the cost of electricity is per kilowatt hour is today. So you can see within just a few years, these are projections from our utility companies, and you can see how even with Lower Churchill project coming online, the price of energy is still going to rise. So now that I talked about why it's important, what types of things can we do, what does it involve to achieve sustainable energy consumption and production in your home. So on the consumption side of things, you can break it down into two categories. There's the energy conservation and then there's the energy efficiency. So energy conservation are the more behavioral type things like turning off your lights, reducing your room temperature, washing your clothes in cold water, air drying your dishes and your clothes, those types of things. That's your energy conservation. And then on the energy efficiency is how well can you use that energy to do what you're trying to do. So how well is your home insulated? With that heat that you're putting into it, how well does it retain that? Do you have a very good sealed home so you're not losing drafts through the home? How efficient are your appliances, your lights, and your heating systems, those types of things. So then on the energy production side, there's not that many ways that people can produce energy at their own home. Here's a list of a few that you could potentially do on a home, and I'll talk more about them later, why certain ones are prohibited right now. So this is just a quick chart. I just wanted to see that you guys could see how your energy is comparing with the national average. So on the left column there is different brackets for your size home. So find out where your size home fits there. The middle column is how many kilowatt hours of energy you use per year, and then here is what your yearly energy cost would be. So these are the Canadian averages for these size homes. So if you can look where you are, you might say, okay, I'm average, or I'm above average, but just because you're average doesn't mean you're good, and the reason why is what if I told you that that same 2,500 square foot home that has an energy bill of $5,600 a year, what if I told you their energy bill could be $3,700 a year? The same price, same amount of energy as a 1,000 square foot home. That's what an energy efficient home means. And so I thought the way I wanted to kind of detail this to you is I wanted to walk you through what we did. This is my father's home here in Newfoundland, and we did exactly what I just told you. This is a 3,000 square foot home, and we took our energy bill down almost 45%. So I just wanted to kind of walk you through the steps that we did to get there. That way it'll give you guys an idea of what's actually possible when you implement these types of things.
That's a pretty big, that's a high number, Josh, 45%.
It is 45%. Can you imagine? That is essentially cutting your bill
in half.
It's very significant. Yeah. Actually, that reminds me, if you have any questions, just interrupt me like Hope did, and I'll be happy to answer your question. So first thing we did was all the family members try to convince them, conserve as much as you can, within reason. And my mom is she likes the house to be warm, and she really likes to be using lots of energy. But so it's been a struggle. But it's just being a compromise with all your family and living comfortably, but just having that in the back of your mind all the time, thinking about the energy that you're consuming. As well as we performed numerous energy efficiency upgrades that I'm going to talk about now, as well as we installed an 8 kilowatt solar thermal air system on our home. So you can see this is our home there, and the 4 solar collectors on top. This is one of my favorite graphs, and I love to share it with people, and I love to update this graph. Every at the end of the month, month when I get my the bill from Newfoundland Power. I'm really excited about getting the bill. Not many people are excited about getting the bill, but I can't wait for that day until I get the bill so I can update this graph. This is showing our monthly energy consumption through the years. So we purchased a home in 2011, starting in January of this 2014 year is when we had all the energy efficiency upgrades completed, as well as the solar system installed. So the 4 purple bars on the left-hand side of the graph are what we've been seeing recently. And so this is in the scale, the axis, vertical axis is in kilowatt hours per day. And so you can see in January we were significantly less than all the other years. And then in February, I just kind of wanted to note, you guys have known this winter has been extremely cold. So even with this cold winter, we've even been able to see these reductions. This February was 14% colder than the previous February, and this March it actually set a record. This March was 30% colder than it was in March 2013, and we were still able to see this kind of a reduction, so I was really happy to see that.
How's that 45% though? I don't see the bar graphs as they're...
Right, so 45% will be is more energy efficient throughout the entire year.
Oh,
so
okay.
what we're going to by the end of 2014, all these purple bars here, when you add all of those up, they're going to be 45% less than if you added up all of, let's say, the 2012 bars that are the red. Yeah. So you're comparing it to when we bought the home in 2011, we're able to decrease it by 45%. So this is our home before we completed any of our upgrades. So it had an uninsulated basement. It had an uninsulated crawl space that was half of the house. Up in the attic, it had only half the amount of insulation that it should have had. And there were lots of seams around windows and doors where we had air leakage. We had incandescent lights in all of the fixtures, no programmable thermostats. So when we bought the house, there was we knew that there were lots of things that we were going to be tackling.
And this was a new build house?
So this home was 8 years old when we purchased it. So it is recently new when we purchased it, 8 years. But yet, it still had all these things that you think a home should have had, right? So how did we address lots of these things? So this is the list of most of the things that we did. So for the crawl space, we went ahead and we insulated that to R30. The basement we finished and we insulated it to R20. The attic insulation, we increased it all the way up to R40. And actually, we're going to in a few weeks' time, we're actually going to increase that all the way up to R55, is where people should be insulating their attics to now. We went and sealed up all those around all the windows and doors, replaced weather strippings, those kind of things. We installed, we have a lot of thermostats in our house, and I'm sure your guys' homes have lots of thermostats as well. I think we had 13 programmable thermostats in our home. So it's a lot of thermostats, but we replaced all of them with programmable thermostats. We replaced all of the lighting with either LED. Mostly, I would say we have about 80% LED lights, and the rest are CFLs. We got rid of all the incandescent lighting.
Can you explain a little bit about the LED and the CFLs? Because when I went looking, like I paid, I think it was $10 for an LED light.
Yeah.
But like when I bought it, the light is going to last me 35 years.
Yeah.
And I thought, are you serious? Like
Yeah.
it just astounded me.
Yeah, it's the LED lights are definitely the future, even more than CFL are actually. They're the cheap, efficient thing to buy right now. But if you're really, and they don't even last that long, in my opinion. They say that they last longer than incandescents, but they're very temperamental. And so I don't think CFLs are going to be around much longer. It's going to be LEDs that are going to be around.
And they also contain potential toxins.
Absolutely, yeah. So LED lights are light emitting diodes for those who don't know. And in the past, they used to be just kind of constrained to simply your Christmas lights and those kind of bluish white lights that people don't like.
Right.
But now in recent times, LED lights can be just as beautiful as your normal traditional incandescent lights. And that was one thing that my mom was really worried about. She liked that nice warm light, and she was very concerned that replacing all these lights were going to make her home look cold and blue of this light. But the LED bulbs that you can buy now You can buy them Home Depot, Kent. They're just as nice as the incandescent ones. You just have to make sure that you buy the right, they go by the temperature of the bulb, and you just have to ask the person, hey, I want a warm light, what light do I buy? And this is the type of fixture that I have. There's all your different types of fixtures. There's LED bulbs to support them. Currently, they're a little bit more expensive right now, but
Costco sells them, they're not bad at all.
Absolutely.
I even bought floodlights for over my garage.
absolutely, because you
And,
can buy them in packages,
yeah,
right? And you get a really good deal when you get the dollar per light.
Yeah.
And so,
$15 or $35 for 2 light bulbs last week, and they were the LED lights.
right, yeah.
They're
so-
nice. Very nice lighting.
Yeah,
They're just to go over my stove, like.
yeah, it's great. Yeah. So, completing all of these things, what did we actually achieve? So, just from energy conservation and energy efficiency upgrades, we were able to reduce our energy consumption by 25%, which represented almost $1,400 per year. So, just in conservation, we were able to get down 25%. That was really great. And the great thing, it didn't cost a lot of money to do this. Insulating your attic, insulating the crawl space, overall, we expect the payback period to be under 2 years, so that's is really nothing. And then every year after that, we're going to be saving this amount of money, and as energy prices go up, we're going to be saving even more money. So it's really a no-brainer to do these types of things. And the other thing is a lot of people don't realize is your home is going to feel more comfortable in almost all parts of the home. So for example, in the half of the house that had the uninsulated crawl space, that floor was always cold. And I've gone to a lot of houses where you go over for dinner or whatever, and their floors are cold, and they say, well, you don't have the heat turned on. They have, oh, we have an unfinished basement, or we have a crawl space, and the floor is just cold. Or sometimes if they have seams around windows, you get that draft coming in behind. So it's not comfortable. But doing these things, not only are you going to save money, but your home just feels more comfortable, and that matters a lot to people. But then overall. So this reduction of energy that we use, when you look at how much greenhouse gases that's going to prevent, just that 25% represented 1.2 tons of greenhouse gas emissions here in Newfoundland. And that's, here in Newfoundland, we have a lot of hydro anyway, so our emissions are not as much as many other provinces of Canada. So even with Newfoundland's relatively clean utility grid, this is still quite significant that, hey, we prevented 1.2 tons of greenhouse gases going into the environment every year. So that's great. So that was the energy consumption side of things. So now I want to switch over to the energy production side of things. And this is what I kind of find the more interesting part of it. Saving energy is cool, but this is the stuff that really interests me. So if someone said to you, how are you going to generate your own energy on your property? What options do you have? So on the previous slide, I listed these ones here. These are some possible options that you could do. But when you look at each one of them, for example, wind power, here, if you were in central St. John's, you're not even allowed to put a wind turbine on your house because of regulations. It's not going to look good. There's lots of sound issues with them. So wind power is really not feasible. Geothermal is good, but we have a very rocky province here, and these systems to install, even for a new home construction, are 30, 40 grand to put in these types of geothermal systems, so they're really cost prohibitive, especially at this time. Microhydro, not everybody has rivers running through their properties where they can just tap into the river to produce energy, so that's no good. Not everybody is into collecting firewood or going to the store to buy pellet for their pellet stove. So biomass is not really a great option as well. Solar photovoltaics are great, but as well, similar to geothermal, they're still very expensive. As I told you, we installed an 8 kilowatt solar system in our house. An 8 kilowatt photovoltaic system would have cost us well over $30,000, and the payback would have been much longer. So at the end of the day, solar thermal is probably one of the most cost-effective solutions if you want to produce your own energy at home. And so this is not the way that I came to the conclusion that I wanted to pursue solar thermal energy. I just kind of wanted to show you guys that if you're really interested in producing your own energy, this is by far one of the best options. But what I'd like to do now is just tell you my story how I got interested in solar thermal technologies and how I developed my own system. So it started
I
back.
seen that on YouTube last night.
Did you?
I
You must have
did. I
searched it.
did. Huh?
What did you search?
Somebody had posted it on Facebook and I
Oh,
went to
okay.
YouTube
Yeah.
and
That's where it all starts.
there's this, all tin cans are made in Newfoundland. They got this little thin thing put inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
and they're made right here. They're sold even down to the States,
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, actually.
That's how I wind up in porn channels all the time.
Tell you what.
Is that how you explain it to your wife?
Rachel's laughing. That's how you went
I go directly to it. It's like, yes, go ahead, my friend.
So yeah, so this is the YouTube, when I got on there, literally hundreds of people making these devices themselves in their garages or whatever, and it just really captivated me, and I like to build things at the same time, so I decided I was going to build my own one of these heaters just to see how well they work for myself. But before I go any further, I just wanted, for those who don't know, the operation of one of these collectors is extremely simple. Cool air from a space that you want to heat is pulled out through a small fan and is pushed through these panels. And so then there's several channels or tubes. So in the case of the pop can heater one, they have the cans stacked on top of each other with holes drilled so the air can travel up through them. And as those cans are painted black, so as the sun is radiating on those cans, it transfers the heat to the air, and then the warm air is then delivered back into the space. So it's extremely simple. There's only one mechanical part, a fan, that you really have to worry about. So it's a very simple system, and the operation of it is very simple as well.
So are you involved with anybody who does that out of the school in Dildo, isn't it?
You'll see.
Okay.
So this is the first one that I built. This was so this was in 2010. So I built my first one. It was out of just a wooden box with 2x6s. I used 50 pop cans, put a plexiglass cover on it, painted it all black. Really simple, just kind of threw it together. But what was amazing to me is that it only took me 3 hours to build this, less than $100 in materials, and I was able to harness the energy of the sun. It was just, even though it wasn't the most practical in this sense, it was just, it really hit home as this is really simple to do. So just in simply, the first test that I was doing, the temperature of the air in the outlet header coming out of the panel was over 70 degrees Celsius in a bright sunny day. So because it was such a great progress, I decided I was going to build my next one. I wanted to go bigger this time, so I wanted a glass cover this time. So I went on Kijiji and I found someone who was selling a sliding patio door that they were just getting rid of because the seal, I can't remember why they were trying to sell it, but I went, bought the door. It was like 20 bucks. It was a good deal on this sliding door. And so then I built this panel around the dimensions of this sliding door. So this one you can see 140 pop cans. Got my family to drink a lot more Coke and Pepsi and Nestea. Took quite a while to collect all these cans actually. But so the bigger panel, we were actually even get up even higher temperatures, over 100 degrees Celsius this time. So actually the plan was, I had convinced my father that we were going to put this on our house and start piping this air into the house. And
Yeah, sure.
very
That went over large.
he was on board, but we were living in Halifax at the time, and due to work, he relocated back here to St. John's, so he sold his house up there, and we didn't want to bring the panel to Newfoundland, so I just kind of put the panel on Kijiji, and literally within like less than 7 hours, I had 3 people contact me. I want this now. I only put it on there for $100, the same amount of money it cost me to build it. I just wanted to get rid of it because my parents are relocating. And so I stayed at university and in Dalhousie at the time. So this kind of idea of the solar heaters kind of went in the back of my mind, and I kind of left it alone for a couple of years as I focused on my studies in Dalhousie. But then in the last year of my degree, we were tasked with doing a senior design project. And so myself, along with 3 other students, I kind of brought back that idea and convinced the other guys that it would have been a good thing to do a design project on this. And so we convinced our professors that, yeah, there was a lot of mechanical engineering here that we actually could do on this thing to take the product from just your simple solar pop can heater to an actual collector that people could use on their homes, and how would you do that in a practical sense. So we did a lot of optimization of the collectors. We built CAD models of them. We ran some computational fluid dynamic analysis of them. We had one of our students, they completed a finite element analysis on the structure of the panel, as well as I completed a thermodynamic analysis of the panel and how we can optimize it. So we went ahead and came up with this design where we went with a fiberglass shell to enclose the whole panel. We used a special type of insulation called polyisocyanurate insulation that was good for the high temperatures that we were going to be seeing, because a lot of people in these solar collectors, they've been using just the standard pink foam, which is going to melt at these kind of temperatures, so that's definitely not the way to go there. In this one we used over 450 pop cans, and so it was quite a lot of drinking, but luckily in engineering you have lots of friends who are willing to help you collect these cans. So we built this collector, and then near the end of the semester we went ahead and tested it to see that it met our design criteria. So we set out for a panel that would produce 1,500 watts in direct sunlight, and that's exactly what this panel was actually able to achieve. 1,500 watts of power production in direct sunlight. And so we learned a lot of things in this process, and one of the most biggest ones is to not use pop cans for the heaters. It may sound cute that you're using recycled cans, and it may be good for the environment, but at the end of the day, the amount of work and labor that went into preparing these cans for these collectors was not feasible if you wanted to sell this. So for all these 450 cans, they had to be collected, they had to be cleaned, they had to be cut, they had to be all stacked together, sealed. It was a crazy amount of hours that we put into it, and we learned that this is not the way to go if you're trying to make these panels to sell them. And then the last thing, you definitely need a glass cover for these collectors. Using any kind of plexiglass that some people do is just not an option if you're really looking for a solar collector that's going to last the same lifespan that a typical solar collector should last. So I graduated, as I told you, in May 2013, and ever since then, or as soon as I graduated, I went ahead and designed my next iteration, or I call it my final prototype of these collectors. And again, I convinced my dad. I said, okay, this is the one that we're going to put on your roof. This is the final design, and we're going to put them on your roof. And so because he was on board with it, and it was great because it forced me to consider a lot of the things that we didn't think about before. Like, how do you actually attach this collector to your roof? And especially in the windy city of St. John's, how are you going to ensure that it's going to fly off in the wind? As well as actually, how are you going to connect this panel to your home so it's actually delivering warm air to the space? So a lot of thought went into those. So all the structure mounting components was designed by my colleague Ricardo Ciccarelli. He is also a graduate from Dalhousie. We took his design and we went to a structural engineering firm here in the St. John's, where they actually went and certified the design. And we needed that certification because we went to the city of St. John's to get our building permits. Before we could actually put any of these collectors up on the roof, we needed our building permits. So we went through the procedure to make sure that everything was copacetic in that regard. So after the design, I began constructing of them. So for our home, I figured out that we needed 4 of these collectors is what we could accommodate on our home. So you can see here, these are the collectors. They're 8 feet by 4 feet in size, each one. And one of the big things on this collectors is you can see here, this is the internal tubes. So instead of going with the pop can idea, we actually manufacture our own tubes out of aluminum flashing. We cut strips of aluminum flashing and roll it into tubes. That way we can have one continuous channel the whole way, and it's very cost effective to do it. We don't have to collect cans. It's a very simple way to do it. Another great thing about, another improvement that we've done in this design is inside of each of these tubes we have internal heat exchanger fins to promote heat transfer as much as possible. So when all the sun that we collect, we want to extract as much of that heat as possible so that it's not radiated back out into the environment. So here's a few pictures of the finished panel. So the glass on this cover is actually a solar glass, which simply just means it's tempered glass with a low iron content. So that just means it's going to be able to receive as much of the solar radiation as possible. So I had this as a special glass. I had it shipped. I think it came from somewhere in the States. So I bought 4 of those sheets of glass for the collectors. And so we brought it out into the park and we did lots of testing, and the panel performed just as well, actually better than what I expected. So that was great. So then we were tasked with actually putting them on the roof. This was a lot of fun, especially when you have to you have the weather to cooperate with. It took a lot of time, but we used scaffolding up the front of our house, and with the help of my friend and 2 other people, we were able to lift the panels up and bolt them to the roof of my dad's house.
How heavy is each panel?
Each panel is about 100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite heavy, so we had a winching system to lift it up there. And this is the part that my dad was the most concerned with. So for each one of these panels, there was 6 holes drilled in the roof, so times 4 panels. So my dad said, "You're going to drill 20 holes in my roof? Are you crazy?" So it really forced us. I came up with a good penetration design, special flashing that essentially made it virtually impossible for any water to leak into the penetration. So that was really important for my dad. So I spent a lot of time in making sure, and looked at what the other people doing solar collectors, how did they mount them to the roofs, and kind of adapted it to the way that we were going to mount them. So after the panels were installed up on the roof, it was next we were ready to install all the equipment inside the house to actually set it all up. So that consisted of installing the ductwork that's going to connect to these collectors and then deliver the heat to the different spaces in the home. As well as installing the fan that's actually going to move this air. The fan is installed up in the attic. As well as the controls to make it all automated. So the system comes on when the sun comes out, delivers the heat, and then when the sun goes down, it all shuts off automatically. So we have temperature sensors, as well as the switches and relays to make that all automatic, as well as so that I can log and record all of the data coming from the system. So there's quite a bit of, it was more work there than I actually anticipated. But it was a great learning experience. So this is a graph just showing you the performance of the collector on one day. So this is a 24-hour snapshot showing performance on a day in March. It was actually March 7th. And so the blue line is the temperature on the left scale, and the right is your power production. So you can see that roughly around noon, our temperature in the panels that peaked around almost at 60 degrees Celsius. And the power production just over 8 kilowatts of power at peak production. And on this day, when you integrate over the whole time, the system produced 45 kilowatt hours of energy that day. So on a day in March, that represented about 1/3 of the energy that the house consumed over that 24-hour period. But the solar system was able to cover, like I said, 45 kilowatt hours of that energy, which is direct savings that we didn't have to pay for.
Does that factor in the cost of the fan energy?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So the fan runs at 300 watts right now. So 300 to the 8,000. It's very small, but yes, it is factored in here. I took that into account. And I guess the other thing to mention is, So a lot of people say, so that's great, you got these collectors that are going to heat your house during the winter, but most of the sun is in the summer. We don't need any heat in the summer, so what does your collector do in the summertime? So in the summertime, what we have is we're simply just going to use that hot air to heat our hot water for our domestic hot water needs. So what we've done, we have a separate solar hot water tank right next to our existing tank. And through a pump, it just simply recirculates the water in this tank through a heat exchanger. And that heat exchanger is what's receiving the warm air from the collectors. And so this is all automated. When the sun has come out, it controls when for the fan and the pump to run, and the fan and pump won't run, obviously, when there's no sun available, so it's all automated. So in the summer, what we've expected, we designed we wanted 4 collectors because we were able to use that amount of heat in the winter. In the summer, even though we're going to be able to heating water, we're still going to have more heat than we can actually use. So we project that we're only going to be able to use about 30% of the heat that we produce in the summer for water. That shows how little energy that you need for water heating compared to space heating. So unfortunately, the rest of that energy is going to be just exhausted outside. But that's what we're going to do in the summer, and we do this because you're putting this solar system up on your house. You need to maximize the amount of energy that you get from it if you want a short payback period. So what does this system achieve for us? So like I said, this is an 8 kilowatt system, and we're estimating that it's going to produce roughly 7,000 kilowatt hours of energy per year. So after all our energy efficiency upgrades that we did, that's going to represent about 20% of our annual energy needs, which is pretty awesome that you can say 20% of our energy comes from the sun. I think that's really great.
So that's a bit of cloudy and everything like that, but it's got to be direct sun?
So what I've been finding lately is that even not on a day like today, our system is not running today, but even on a partly cloudy day or a slightly overcast day, you still are receiving solar radiation, and actually enough radiation that the system still kicks in and is still producing positive energy. So even today is a very overcast day, but yes, this number takes into account all the days of the year. So the model actually is based on I collected, I think it was 10 years of historical weather data for here in St. John's, the solar data, all of the weather data, the temperatures outside, and that was used to make a model, and that's where that 7,000 kilowatt hours comes from. And then now the last 4 months that this system has been operating, I've been comparing what our actual production is to that model, and I'm happy to say that the system is actually right on par with what the model is producing. So by the end of this year, after a full year of running the system, I'm very confident that this is what we're going to achieve, 7,000 kilowatt hours of energy. And actually, even further, that 7,000, we're actually going to be producing more than 7,000 kilowatt hours, but like I said, we're going to be wasting some of it in the summer because we can only use so much for water heating. So that 7,000 is the amount of energy, of the useful energy that we'll be able to use for the house, because that's what actually will be our savings. So, and at today's electricity price, that was about $800 per year. But as I showed you that graph of the Nowcore projection for the rates, when we use those rates from the projection from Nowcore, the payback for this system is going to be less than 5 years, which is extremely low for any kind of solar system. Most solar systems, you're looking almost at a decade or more for payback. And so then the great thing is that this energy is clean and is from the sun and zero emissions. So just from this system alone, we're going to prevent 0.7 tons of greenhouse gas emissions from being emitted. And if you look at over the lifetime of the system, roughly 25 years, that's almost 20 tons that it's going to prevent from going out into the atmosphere. So that's great news. So, like I said, I founded this company, Empowered Homes, and what my goal is to help homeowners and customers do the exact same thing that we were able to achieve for my dad's home. And so there's, as I've been mentioning, there's 2 ways that we're going to do that. We're going to focus on both reducing your consumption, and if you would like to add your own production capabilities. So we provide home energy auditing services to people to help them figure out how much energy they can save and how much is it going to mean for them and how much is it going to cost. As well as we're going to actually provide these services to actually help people complete these upgrades. So it takes a lot of work to get contractors in. If you want to insulate the attic, maybe you're not comfortable doing that, but you really want to get it done, we'll help facilitate getting the contractors and making it very low hassle for you. You you just put us in charge and we'll ensure that it all gets done for you. Very low hassle. And the second thing we want to do is we want to actually manufacture and sell these solar systems, just as I described, to homeowners here in Newfoundland, so they can see the same benefits that we've been seeing. So that's all I have for you. If you have any more questions with regards to the system or conservation, I'd be happy to take them right now.
So you'll come into anyone's home and just do an audit? How long does it usually take?
Yeah, depending on the size of the home, it could range from maybe 1 hour up to 3 hours, depending on the size of your home. So I've done now 8 of these energy audits, and on average they've taken about 2 hours to complete. And so at the end of the energy audit, I go back to my office, crunch the numbers, and provide a report to you to find out how much energy are you actually going to save and how much money is it going to cost you to complete those upgrades.
And then is that including, like, the quote that you would give out, would that include, like, the subcontractors, like if I needed insulation or?
Yes.
So your price would be inclusive of
Yeah, so
everything?
what I do is I give you an estimate of how much I think the materials are going to cost and how much I think the labor is going to cost, just to give you an estimate. And then if you say, okay, yep, I want to do this stuff, and you want me to take care of it, then I'll go out to the contractors and actually get formal quotes and then run them by you, obviously, and to complete the work. Yeah.